Hello, it's Maggie the Cheshire Crafter here. This is part 2 in a series of videos where I'm talking about applying decoupage tissue or paper napkins to slate. And in this video, I'm going to look at applying 3-ply paper napkins. My slates are coasters, which have feet on the back, or hearts. These are hanging hearts. I took the string out of the top of them, and I've actually got a very large heart here. This is about a 9 by 10 inch heart. I need to pull the camera back when I'm showing you that. Now, to do this, there's a slightly different technique because you don't want the grey of the slate showing through the napkins. You will lose the colour and the vibrancy of the napkins. For this, I'm going to use a series of napkins from the German artist Rosina Watchmeister, and I'm going to use her cats. She always signs them, and I've got a variety of napkins here. Not a Venice one, I'm not going to do that today. I've got a variety here of hers. You can see that she does a sideways face on the cat to give it that unusual look, and the ears pointing up. That's a family of cats. I love the vibrancy and colour of her work and the quirkiness of her work. Whether it's a family of cats or an individual cat, it's the same one. And I'm going to be using those today. To begin, I'm going to use some white acrylic paint. This is just basic titanium white from WHSmith. I'm going to apply it with the brush, and I'm going to apply 3 coats to these 3 slates. And then I'm going to let them dry in between coats. Come back when I've done that. I've actually got quite a big brush for this small one, but I also want to get it in the nooks and crannies down the side, but I don't want to get paint on the back. If you do, it's water soluble and it will come off, but I prefer not to. Make sure you go round the hole. As you can see, the paint will look streaky to begin with. That's because the slate has certain direction in it. And it's helpful when you paint to paint with the grain and across the grain. And it's better to paint thin layers than thicker layers. So I might get 2 or 3 thin layers on that. And then that'll dry a little bit quicker. Right, let me do it on the bigger ones. Right, for the coasters, I recommend that you do at least 3 coats, 2 with the grain and 1 against the grain and round the sides. If you get any paint on the back, this is all water soluble. So once I've finished, I'm going to be getting the sponge and sponging that off. And I do recommend that you remember to wash your brushes in between coats of paint to make sure that you don't leave your brushes getting wet. Right, I'm going to use Mod Podge Matte again. Mod Podge Matte, and I've decanted it into this little pot. Coaster's wonky, so it wouldn't make a very safe coaster. So I'm going to turn this one into a wall hanging, and I'm going to use this Rosina Watchmeister design. And for this one, I don't want the cat on it. I actually want the sun and the rainbow. So I'm going to select the part that I need and then cut round it, just trying to avoid that cat a little bit, larger than the size I need. When you open out the napkins, you'll find that there are 4 designs, but there are mirrored images on them. I only want to cut out 1 design. So let me do that first of all. This is a 3-ply tissue and I just want the top layer. So I'm going to carefully separate it from its lower 2 layers without breaking the tissue, and keep those bottom layers to one side for the moment. Just come away easily. And you will see as I hold it that the white will come through. So if I wanted to paint it a different colour, like a blue or a red, it will give you a different result. Consider that when you're using different coloured napkins. Right, I'm going to apply it. I'm going to apply this with Mod Podge, and I don't want to paint the tissue. I want to paint the Mod Podge glue onto the slate tile. And I want a thin layer. It's not going to show up very well. This is white on white, but I just want a thin layer. I'm just doing the top, not the sides at the moment. And I want a thin layer. And then I'm guessing, this is a guesstimate of where I want that sun to be. And once I put the tissue down, it will start to grab. So be sure you've got it in the right place. And then just finger press it from the middle out. Be very gentle with it. These tissues are very delicate. And try not to get any puckering in it. If you do, just pull it back up slightly and push again. Do not push your fingers through the tissue. Then roll it back. Don't crease it. And do a second part. I tend to do this in 3 parts, a little bit like I do my cards. I don't do it all at once. Roll this back so that you don't get a creased fold. Go right to the edge. And I can feel some of that decoupage glue coming through. That's the point that it becomes very, very volatile, should I say, and that's the time that you're likely to put your fingers through it. If you get glue on your fingers, it'll stick to your fingers, and you don't want that, so you want clean, dry hands for this. Right, make sure it's gone right to the edge and has caught the edge. And I can feel that that has, it actually catches very quickly. That's great. And now I'm going to do the top and the sides. I think I'm going to do this side first. I'm just going to, again, fold back that tissue. The beauty of Mod Podge tissue and acrylic paint is that if you make a mess, it's all water soluble. And if you immerse the coaster in hot soapy water, you can actually take it back to its original slate, which is worth knowing because it's very easy to make a mistake with these. Right, I'm using the edge of my finger here and just rolling it over. No fingernails anywhere near. That one's got a nice padding on that finger, so I'm just patting that down, trying to get into the nooks and the crannies of the coaster here at the sides with sufficient glue. Right, let's do that round all 4 sides. Make sure that your corners are completely covered from top and bottom, and then make sure from the top it's fully secure and pushed down. Once I've done that, I'm going to leave it to dry. It's the Mod Podge on this that needs to dry, and I would leave it at least 2 hours. Now the Mod Podge is thoroughly dry, I'm just going to sand the edges, and for this I'm going to use an emery board. And you'll find that the tissue paper comes away really well. I start it with the rougher side of the emery, and then to get through the finer parts I use the finer side. And you'll find that it just rips away. I then go over it again just to make sure that I've got a really good edge, and you can also check from the reverse too. Go around all 4 sides doing that. And now it's ready to varnish. I'm going to use my Wilko's quick dry varnish. This is the clear gloss varnish. dries within an hour, I'm going to apply 2 coats. I decant some into a smaller jar, which I've labelled, and I'm going to apply a thin layer with a brush. I use one of these brushes for it, and then I'm going to leave it to dry at least an hour, but they recommend 4 hours between coats, so that's what I'm going to do on this coaster. Some people use Mod Podge for this, and if you were using Mod Podge, you would want the gloss Mod Podge. I prefer to use this varnish, which is heat resistant. I'm going to keep going with that off camera, and I'm going to do the sides as well. So that's now dried. For this heart, I'm going to use this paper napkin, and I've got 2 images the same. And what I've done is I've cut the cats out, and they're going to be central. But you can see that I need to fill in the gaps around the edge. So what I've done is I've taken pieces from the edge of a napkin, and I'm going to decoupage those round, leaving a cat-size hole there for me to fill in. And I've taken these down to 1 layer thick. I'm going to use probably the outside edges of all 4 pieces to fill in those gaps. And I'm going to apply that tissue with Mod Podge. Right, so I'm pleased about how that looks. I have gone round and small pieced it, and because some of the pieces were sticking up, I've done something different with this one. I've gone over the surface again with Mod Podge. I'm now going to go around the edge and just sand the edges with an emery board. And the other thing I've done, I want to point out, is I've just made sure that I keep the holes patent for the ribbon I'm going to put through before I varnish it. And now I'm going to apply layers of varnish. Because this has got a layer of Mod Podge in, it might not be as porous, and I might need fewer layers of varnish. I've also put the Rosina, she always signs her work, so I've tried to include that into the finished piece. Right, so this is going to take quite a lot of varnishing. Well, here are my final pieces. This is after 4 layers of varnish. They actually took more varnish than I expected. So this is 4 layers of the varnish. What I did find was the slate. I can't get anything to stick to the back to it as a wall hanging. So I'm just going to place it in my craft area as a wall plaque. The coaster has turned out fine. I'm happy with this. That's 4 coats of varnish, and then I've been able to rehang the little cat just with one of those velvet ribbons that I got from Docrafts in the sale the other day. And the other one I've got hanging up, let me show you. I'm pleased with how these turned out. And finally, this is my slate wall hanging. I've got a friend who's just had 2 kittens, so I think that might be a gift for her. I replaced the string with velvet ribbon. I've tied it at the back. It hangs beautifully, and that took 4 coats of varnish on top of Mod Podge. But altogether, I'm pleased with my slate and Mod Podge and napkins. I hope you're successful on your journeys too. For now, this is Maggie, the Cheshire Crafter. Come back and see me soon, won't you? Bye.